But the manosphere was sort of the third candidate, right? We had to cover the Trump campaign, we had to cover the Harris campaign, and we had to pay attention to the manosphere. And Trump won in the manosphere, right? If a portion of the electorate that was up for grabs existed in the manosphere, Trump won the manosphere. No one debates that.
But I also was on the ticket, quite honestly, you know, because I could code talk to white guys watching football, fixing their truck, doing that I could put them at ease. I was the permission structure to say, look, you can do this and vote for this.
But why aren't Democrats out there on a, you know, sort of smash-mouth political guerrilla campaign in the manosphere competing for the hearts and minds of young men who swung for Trump?
Well, there's still time to do that, and they need to do that. And I can tell you right now, after these 4 months, there's a lot more talk than there was 2 months ago, and there will be a lot more talk 6 months or 2 months from now, 6 months from now, on what's transpiring here in the economy. And so now is the time. Now is the time to get out there and start talking about the issues that are impacting the families. And talk. Look, there's so many things going on that affects the manosphere, so to speak. They're going to sell off our public.
I feel like all of Montana's in the manosphere.
They want to sell off our public lands, for God's sake. What's more manosphere than going out and shooting a deer?
Right now, there's a big conversation about the manosphere, right? I'm sure you guys heard about it. Oh, well, or the Democrats need to have their own Joe Rogan. We had Joe Rogan. We canceled Joe Rogan years ago. Democrats don't want to admit this. We did. And then it became questionable whether we should go on Joe Rogan or not. We did this to ourselves.
I think we should. That's who they're listening to, the young men of this
right.
3 hours
I know.
to say your stuff.
Exactly. He'll won't invite me. I'm not. You know, I'm too boring. But that's my point. Is that but years ago we did that. We did that to ourselves, right? And I think we just have to have a little more breathing room and say, you know what, we got to get out there. Again, we win by Big Ten, except that there's a Big Ten, and we're not going to agree with each other.
I would say our country should be more fearful of white men across our country, because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country. We should be profiling, monitoring, and creating policies to fight the radicalization of white men.
I was the permission structure to say, look, you can do this and vote for this.
And the coddling is for the white boys. That's what's happening right now. I am tired of the white tears. The final thing that I will say is that this election is the best example of why y'all are so afraid of diversity, equity, and inclusion, because then you can't have a simple-minded, underqualified white man somehow end up ascending. Instead, you've got to pay attention to the qualified black woman that is on the other side. And with that, I will yield.
So, like, I mean, this is who aligns with that. So, like, inherently in, like, who you are, y'all are violent. Like, right. Y'all, and most of your violence has to do with people that's got a little bit of melanin.
Most extreme crimes that take place in this country are committed by white supremacists. 80% of extreme crimes are committed by white supremacists in this country. When I first became a public defender, I had no criminal defense experience. And I walked in and I told my boss, Charlie, I said, listen, you should hire me. He said, why? I said, because I'm black. Charlie looked at me like I was crazy.
And if we continue to put people into office, and that even means some of our skinfolk who definitely are not our kinfolk, such as Byron Donalds, who are going to continue to say that, like, I mean, the fact that you sitting around talking about life was better under Jim Crow, like, is this because you don't understand history? Or literally it's because you married a white woman and so you think that whitewashed you? I'm not really sure.
And still, being a member of Congress who has made her way up from the state legislature to Congress, she still thinks that she's oppressed.
There are people that are going to tell you that there is not a table in which there is a seat for you. But I am here to remind you of Montgomery and those folding chairs. Let me tell you that we know how to use a chair, whether we pulling it up or we doing something else with it.
Right now, what I think happened last election is younger men, they would rather vote for somebody who even if they don't completely agree with, they don't feel judged by, than somebody who they do agree with, that they feel like they have to walk on eggshells around constantly because they're going to be judged or ostracized or excommunicated.
Competent white men must be in charge if you want things to work. Unfortunately, our entire national ideology is predicated on coddling the feelings of women and minorities and demoralizing competent white men.
Young people should be able to focus on what young people should be focused on, which is how to get laid and how to go and have fun.
David Hogg for president, ladies and gentlemen.
Your reaction to his appointment?
He needs to go. So the only people that are crying are the mediocre white boys that have been beaten out by people that historically have had to work so much harder.
Lady, why don't you just get out the Democratic Party? Honestly, start your own movement. All right, let's do the simple math. Probably 69%, I don't know, we could call Jim Gerstein or Jeff Garrett. Roughly 69% of the people going to vote in November, maybe more. Let's do 70 for just round math, are going to be white. Of that, 48%, maybe a little more, are going to be male. So that's roughly, let's just call it 33.33% of the entire election. Well, let's just run against them because that's so goddamn smart. All right. So now we're going to have a campaign by the progressive left against white men who vote about a third of everybody that votes in an election. Why don't you, lady, start your own party? And then when it's over, if you want to caucus with the Democrats, fine. We agree with a lot of things that you do, but we don't believe we ought to be running against white men. In fact, we don't think we ought to be running against any gender, any ethnic group, any race, any religion, or anything else. God damn, these people are just helpless. They cannot be helped. There's nothing you can do to help them. They don't want to be helped. And if they had any guts, they'd start their own goddamn political party and get out of ours. I'm sorry.
It is this fear that the people within the party, within the primary system, will have about voting for a woman, because every time we voted for a woman, we've lost so far. And I think that that's a natural fear because we just want to win. So there's a lot of people that are like, you know what? Like, let's go find the safest white boy we can find. You know why? Because they don't want any more Kamala Harris's. They don't want any more Jasmine Crockett's. I mean, I'm just saying.
Those are the callers that we're hearing. We're hearing people.
No, for real.
A white man's got to do it. We're getting those callers.
For real. And to be clear, when we talk about them, I can tell you that there is one specific candidate. I had a donor on the phones with me telling me that all the donors are lining up behind that candidate. So I can tell, and I can tell you it's not a black person nor woman, okay? You know why? Because they don't want any more Kamala Harris's. They don't want any more Jasmine Crockett's.
Wow, Democrats are in a spot right now. David Hogg has just been ousted as the vice chair of the DNC, and it's ironic though, he was removed really for procedural issues during his selection campaign. There wasn't enough diversity in the process that eventually resulted in David Hogg being the DNC vice chair. He was literally removed for lack of diversity. It's very ironic given that it kind of mirrors the exact problem that the Democrats are having ideologically and structurally. Right now, America is grappling with a shifting racial dynamic. For the longest time, the Democrats could count on a solidified bloc as the black vote. What you have now with the Democrats being unable to capture the male vote, and not just the male vote, there's something else in particular the Democrats need to pay attention to, and I think they are paying attention to it. Because most of the men that the Democrats really want to get are the white men. What that represents is white men pulling away from the Democrats as a group. And then on top of that, as the white men pull away from Democrats as a group, you will eventually get a trickle effect that turns into a tidal wave of white women following white men away from the Democrats for what is effectively a white vote. And the Democrats, in their war against white men, I don't know that they can see what's coming, but they are cutting themselves off from having any access to what is becoming a developing white vote in this country. And this is going to sink the Democrats permanently going forward. Ironically, the Republicans may claim almost as much diversity as the Democrats going forward while being the de facto home of the newly formed white vote. There's a lot of interesting things happening on the political front right now. You see, I played a lot of clips of Jasmine Crockett essentially attacking white men on all kinds of levels. You know, you're racist, you're violent, you're bigoted, you just don't like girls. And the Democrats have a decision to make. They really are at a fork in the road. And I think I know which way they're going to go. But they're at this fork in the road where you either make amends with the white vote, which sounds categorically impossible to tell you the truth, but you either make amends with the white vote, which means you can't have your strong black woman like Jasmine Crockett leading the front of the charge, attacking white people and white men, broadly speaking. You have to make a decision. You either give up on the strong black woman or you ride this out into oblivion. But you can't do both. You can't champion the minority strong black woman vote, which is also aggressively opposed to white men and women for various reasons, politically and personally. You cannot maintain these two people, these two groups under the one big Democrat tent. And so you really do have to make a decision. Do you continue to back the Jasmine Crockett's of the world, the strong black woman minority vote, or do you make amends? Do you say, you know what? Maybe white men aren't that bad. Maybe white men aren't that evil. Maybe I actually can work with white men. Maybe there's something we can learn. Maybe there are things we can do together. But you can't do that if you still have Keisha as your racial political pit bull attack dog. You got to choose.
So, like, it is, they have, quote unquote, they have chosen. And when I say they, it's the same donors that most likely had their opinions about Joe Biden and move. So, like, that would be the they that I would talk about. Here's what I want people to understand. Is I do absolutely agree with Malcolm when he talks about not ceding your power. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, don't give up your power. People fail to recognize how unique Trump is. They continue to say, well, we lost. Well, they both lost to Trump. Trump, who is a misogynist. Trump, who is going to ramp up the misogynist in the first place, because that's what he does. He is disrespectful. Like right now, he still doesn't know how to deal with me, because if you punch me, I'm punching back, okay?
And what's interesting about this moment is it feels like the two parties in some senses have flipped, where, you know, Republicans used to be the judgmental assholes.
And you know what I can't name? I can't name one Democrat. I mean, I look at the Democrats, they're in total disarray. They have a new person named Crockett. I watched her speak the other day. She's definitely a low IQ person. And they said, she's the future of the party. I said, you have to be kidding. I don't know what they're going to do.
When I hear Jasmine Crockett talking about how I'm just against all things and everything Trump, is that legislating? Isn't it an obligation that you have to come up with something? If the other party is in office, you have to go from thinking that you're going to get what you want if your party was in the White House, and instead transitioning to how can I work with the other party to get some of what I want, because I know I'm not going to get most of what I want because they won the election.
One last thing. A lot of people have been having this conversation recently about black fatigue and white people's reaction to black people, generally speaking. One thing I notice when they talk about young people trending right-wing, young men trending right-wing, what they're really talking about is young white men trending right-wing. And so I want you guys to leave a comment below and tell me what you think is the future for young men, young white men, and the Democrat Party. Hit the like button. Thanks for watching.
They're saying like all the college kids, boys, men, whatever they are trending conservative. And I'm like, yeah, duh. The left is so insane at this point that, like, if you're a dude, especially if you are a straight dude and put yourself in that category, like, you're like insane. It's like, not only is it like, it's embarrassing. It's like, imagine being a man and being like, yeah, I'm a Democrat. It's like literally the most like feminine, embarrassing thing you could do.